Hello, everyone. Howdy. Hi, everyone. Oh, look at that. 56 people tuning in. Good to see you out there in the chat window. Hello there. Hello, Spooky Shadow. Cindy, Emily. Oh, lots of people saying hi. Hi, George. Let me put this blind down. Actually, you might want to see out the window. I'm in my office right now. So my office, if you didn't know, is on the 11th floor of the Redmond Barry building. The clouds do look nice, don't they? We'll have a look outside. You can see I look down on the sporting fields and the colleges out there. It's quite a nice view, really. I've been in this office since 2007 is when I moved into this office. And I might actually be moving to a new one in about a year or so. I'll be sad to see this office go. It's a good view, right? You can see your house from there, Ryan. There you go. Let me put this down so we can get some even lighting in here. That's better. I'll turn my little lamp on here. Let's get some lighting happening. Oh, what has Charlie done to my cords? There we go. Okay. So, hi, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. Will this live stream be recorded? Yes, yeah, it will. So this will get published on the YouTube channel as soon as it's finished. King of YouTube, not quite. The room does have plants. We've got plants. So let me show you. We'll move some stuff here and unplug. It is a little bit monastic, I'll give you that. So it was repainted a little while ago, and yeah, I've got some pictures at home that I'm meaning to bring in. I just have not yet. But you can see I've got a plant over here. You can see, so these are all little things that people have given me. This is my little Get It Girl plaque. Don't even ask. Don't even ask. But then, of course, we've got Groot. And then we have, I do not remember the name of this plant, but it requires no water. You're supposed to water it only like once a year, something like that. It does really well. And then I've got another plant over here that is named, I think that's Daniel. Is that Daniel? So my honors students a few years ago named some plants after themselves that I'd bought. And Daniel is one of them. I think that's Daniel. Yeah, because the other one was Spiky. And that was Kate. Kate was dangerous. She had attitude, so we called the spiky one Kate. But you're right. It is a bit. We could do with some more greenery in here, couldn't we? Yeah. So, but Kate died. The plant, not the student. The student is still quite well, and I think potentially one of your tutors this year. And you've got lots of plants, but your birds eat them. There you go. So are they your have you got some parrots or something like that at home? Yeah, REP Kate plant. So who was at the lecture last night? Talk about shit happening. It really literally did happen, didn't it? Charlie doesn't seem to be ashamed at all. Oh, two buddies, there you go. What happened? Well, for those of you who have seen my streams before and were with us in the first semester, you'd know that I have a new puppy named Charlie. Charlie is now about 5 months old. Let me find a photo of Charlie for you. All right, so here we go. This is Charlie. Charlie's my chocolate Labrador puppy. And Charlie did have an accident. Charlie came to the lecture theatre last night, and about 5 minutes into the lecture, did a big poo right at the front of the stage in front of everybody. It was not a good look, but everybody was very gracious and understanding, and I think everybody was thoroughly amused. If you were there, Newen, I don't know how you missed that. Everybody was very amused. It's okay, Ash. I cleaned it up. At the end of the lecture, everybody seemed to want me to just crack on with the lecture, so we did, and we tried to maintain eye contact on me rather than what was on the floor. If you want a good laugh, go and, I suppose, listen to the lecture recording from last night about 5 minutes in, and you will hear the shenanigans. I know. Did I plan it on purpose for stigma? So it was just when I was talking about stigma as a a mark of difference. And yeah, Charlie definitely left his mark, didn't he? He put the number 2 into mind, brain, and behavior 2, you might say. Yeah, you couldn't stigmatize Charlie. Poor Charlie. Please bring Charlie to the morning lecture. I'm scared to bring Charlie to class anymore after that. Oh my God. I know it's because I kept saying shit happens, right? And it literally did. There you go. Give him a diaper, maybe. Yeah, maybe. God. So stigma by association. Yeah, there you go. Am I going to become stigmatized because of my association with Charlie? Who knows? Hi, no one. Do we have any readings this week? Well, you've got a recommended reading that I set around your assignment. That's what I reckon you'd start with. If I was going to do anything else, anything, I should say, I'd be starting with your assignment reading and that chapter of that book. I know a chapter sounds big, but they're small chapters. PTSD of Charlie Poop. Oh, dearie me. Well, no, I don't have PTSD. It'll be too early anyway. We'll talk about criteria of PTSD and Charlie Poop. You know, the funny thing was, as it happened, I had this moment of feeling like I was a marine mammal trainer again. And I reflected on my decade of marine mammal training in the moment, and I don't think that I ever had a SEAL do that on stage in all of that time. So Charlie takes the cake. He's special. Yeah, the students in the front. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, we might set up a mental health first aid program for those people down the front. Actually, those people down the front, I've got something. A couple of people donated very kindly some plastic bags to help me clean up, and I have got something special for them that I will bring to them next week. If you were out there, no, not nose plugs. Not nose plugs. No, one of these big babies, a big textbook. I might even give one of these away in the stream today. Yeah, exactly. That's right, Rachel. We're trialing, yes, eliciting empathy from people. So very true. Site giveaway. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll do a site giveaway today. What type of textbook should we give away? I get lots of textbooks from publishers. They're always wanting me to prescribe their textbooks, and they're always sending me textbooks to read. We don't obviously tend to really teach out of a textbook. strictly. Nick does, but that's because it's good, and it's good because he wrote it. But in terms of general psych textbooks, they're good for, a little bit of backup reading, but not something we generally hold to. So I'll give away today another one of these really big intro to, listen to that. Wow. Intro to psych textbooks in the stream today. How will we decide who to give it to? I'm not sure. Me want, says Ewan. And we'll work something out in the stream. And I'll, how about we give one? I've certainly got enough to give one away every time we stream, so we'll do that. Battle to the death. Let's not do a battle to the death. No monkey knife fights or anything like that. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Interesting. I wonder what we can do. Ryan has the best stories, so he says. We could use a random. It's funny Levi says that. I do have Graviter and Wallnow and Graviter and Forzano books over there. We could generate a random number between like 1 and how many comments are we going to have? Probably somewhere up to around 500 maybe, and select the 500 or whatever the random number comment is. This is my PhD student saying, should I put in my time card? And I am saying, yes, you should put in your time card so that I can pay you. Most productive input into the stream. Okay, I like that. Who likes that one? Most productive input. Oh, how do you define productive, though? There is a really interesting challenge. That's quite... would we define it by the number of comments or by the most insightful comments, the comments that led to further discussions? I know we need to operationalize it. Look at Spooky Shadow go. That's it. Spooky Shadow wins the textbook. Spooky Shadow, this is yours for using the term operationalization. Love it. Oh no, they say no. Oh, I thought that was Spooky Shadow that just said qualitative analysis. I was about to take the textbook back, but no. Yeah. Spooky Shadow. Send me an email, and we will line up a time for you to come and get your textbook, or we'll meet up at the lecture or something like that. Nice job. Congratulations. It's all yours. I think it's worth about $150 or something like that. So good job. All right. Job done. Who knows? Maybe I'll throw another one out there. Yeah. All right. Hang on. Let me look at the other one. What else have we got over here on my little treasure trove? Okay. Next one. This is very relevant to your clinical psychology. This is actually really helping me clean out my office. This is great, guys. Yeah, this is about clinical psychology. So in undergraduate programs, you will see clinical psychology courses called abnormal psychology, psychopathology, clinical psychology, all talking about states of mental illness and mental health issues. So this one on abnormal psychology is now the next one that we will give out sometime during this stream. Okay. Can Ash G win one for being an angel? Oh, what's Ash been saying? I've missed it. Win one for being funny. Oh, look at all this. Collusion. Are you guys sitting together at a cafe somewhere? as the most abnormal person, can I win it? I don't know if you're the most abnormal person. I don't think we want to have a competition about that. And defining abnormality is a really interesting concept. And it's something we're actually going to talk about next week. So we were just looking at a suggestion, weren't we, about awarding the textbook on the basis of the most productive comment. So if we think about how to define, bit my tongue, how to define abnormality or operationalize, again, abnormality, there we go. It's all about the operationalization. That is a challenge. And this is something I'm going to focus on in the lectures on Tuesday. And we're going to talk about how complex it is to actually understand. If we think about abnormality in the sense of mental health issues, in the sense of a diversion from what is typical, it's very complicated. So if you just did it based on statistical frequency, for example, so things that occur very often being normal from a statistical point of view, the problem is that not all mental health issues are infrequent. Some occur with high probability, high frequency. Things like anxiety and depression, you might recall this week I talked about as being high prevalence disorders. And indeed, not all psychological states or conditions that are low prevalence and are rare would we think of as being related to mental health issues. So extreme intelligence can be very rare, but would we say that that's a mental health issue? No. So statistical frequency can be a consideration and can provide information about determining what might constitute mental health issues or not, but certainly not the only thing you'd think about. There's a lot of things you need to think about. Wow, these chats are going off. All right, so let me scroll back up here. Listen to me, that was my 90s youth coming out of me, going off. This chat's going off. It's fully sick. Yo. Are we frothing on the chat? Oh, Lord. It's all coming back to me. Everybody's down on this operationalization. Is there anything that you should know, given that you haven't done Mind, Brain, and Behavior 1? I've put those Mind, Brain, and Behavior 1 research methods modules online, so you could cast your eyes over those. Couldn't hurt. And at the very least, even if you don't go on to do Mind, Brain, and Behavior 1 next year, you've benefited from getting some access to some knowledge that you wouldn't have otherwise. So you could go and check those out. But otherwise, they're standalone courses, Jessica. You'll be fine to just do MBB2. Will I be talking about ruminating thoughts and how they come about? Yeah, Ryan, I absolutely will. So we'll be talking about rumination and how to interrupt rumination in a very, I suppose, introductory way, at an introductory level. Of course, it might sound on the face of things like a month together, numerous practical classes, an assignment, 10 lectures, is a lot of information and a lot of time to pack everything in. But when we think about the breadth of human experience around mental health issues, and we think about all the possible mental health issues that we're going to talk about, and treatment, and considerations around diagnosis and classification, we actually don't have a lot of time in the course. There's lots of things that I can't fit into this course just for the sake of time. And they are things that you'll learn in later years if you go on to the third year, the psychopathology of everyday life subject. and into honors and into a master's degree or a PhD, or these are things that you would learn in the future. Oh, okay. So here's Levi is saying we could do something with the dangerousness scale survey. Populator. Oh, so a real a Likert scale histogram based on the number of people in the chat. Interesting. You know, I was just thinking about doing something like this live in a lecture, Levi. You might actually see that happen. Remind me of this moment, and you might say in a lecture down the track, oh, that's what we were talking about doing. If mental illnesses, so hi Paulina, thanks for this question. If mental illnesses are so prevalent, then what happens when the majority of people do have it? Would abnormal psychology become that of those who are mentally healthy? Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? So I don't like the term abnormal psychology. I think it's problematic conceptually. It's very hard to define, and I'll demonstrate how difficult it is to define in on Tuesday in lectures. And in fact, outside of undergraduate course titles and textbook titles, I never see the term abnormal psychology used ever in my work. And it's where I spend all of my time. You've never written an essay. Will you be taught how to? The first assignment is similar to an essay in that it's the introduction of a lab report, and that structurally is sort of like an essay. You're certainly introducing a topic, building importance for it, outlining maybe how you're going to proceed in your essay at the start, and then doing providing an evidence-based argument. So creating a literature review, doing a literature review and providing literature to support your claims and assertions that are going to lead your reader to your hypotheses, the predictions for the lab report, which anchor into those 3 research questions that I've predicted, that I've posed. So we've been talking all about operationalization throughout the stream. That's going to be a thing. You're going to want to operationalize those research questions in the context of the measures that we're using. Oh, Ash G, I'm so happy to hear you still say going off. That's great. Is fully sick still a thing too? All right. So to finish answering your question, whoever that was, I'm sorry, I've lost it now in the stream. There was questions about whether or not we're going to teach you how to do it. Yes, absolutely, we will. Practical classes next week will involve some introduction to the subject, and we'll focus on your assignment and getting you prepared to write the assignment to know exactly what to do. Yeah. Don't worry about this assignment. You're going to receive really good support all the way through to submitting it. Spice Girls, says James Colden. I don't know. What are we talking about Spice Girls about? Oh, because of the 90s? Is that what we're talking about? My psychological condition is your superpower. Yo, yeah, that's a really interesting idea. So if you look up a guy, oh God, what's his name on YouTube? He talks about this idea of lived experience of mental health issues actually coming with really special attributes. And I talk a little bit about this as well. And I think 2 things that you get from lived experience is insight, practical insight, and also empathy. So it's not uncommon actually in certain areas of counseling, for example. So alcohol and other drug counselors quite often organizations that provide that counseling will require that their counselors actually have had a history of addiction and recovery, as well as their counseling training. So they've really got that insight into what it's like. All right, now I'm getting lagging behind in this stream. Wow. I need to really catch up. So Sally raises a really interesting question that's relevant to the assignment. So Sally says about the survey, it was hard to know whether the person with a mental health issue was having psychosis or anxiety. In terms of letting someone care for my kids, it's a big difference. That's a really interesting idea, isn't it? And I think that's an idea that many people would endorse. And I intentionally did not I intentionally did not prime you to think about any particular disorder or experience. And so I suppose that's something you could think about in terms of a potential limitation of the study that might affect the data. Could it be that some people were thinking of, say, schizophrenia, and some people might have been thinking about anxiety or depression when they responded to the survey? And did that influence how they responded? So I will let you in on a little secret. I didn't design this study as rigorously as I would have if I was doing it for real. I have built good bits in, and I've built flaws into the study. And so I'll be interested to see who picks up various issues and maybe writes about them. And Sally, that is one that I actually intentionally put in there. So well done, you're a sleuth. And that's one of the things that I've put in there that people might want to write about. So Zindi, when we talk about rumination, we're talking about going over and over and over a thought that you're having and revisiting that thought and dwelling on it over and over again. All right. Is ruminating thoughts a form of anxiety? It can be related to some experiences of anxiety. We'll talk about a thing called generalized anxiety disorder, which is very much about worry, and there can be ruminative aspects there, definitely, absolutely. But it can also be experienced in a wide range of disorders. So there are lots of symptoms that actually traverse disorders, occur across a wide range of disorders. And you might think, well, how can you then distinguish between disorders? And it's about it's a more complex story. It's about how things cluster together in a characteristic way and a complex way, and time, how things occur over time is really another really important consideration. Yeah, Sally, that's a really interesting observation. That some people with mental illness don't like the term recovery. I suppose a really core thing to remember as we go through the course is that we are talking about, many, many different people. No two people's experience is exactly the same, and no two people's, I suppose, thoughts and feelings about mental illness and their experience about treatment, about psychiatry or psychology are the same either. So, I am very aware that there are people that might view themselves as what we would call consumers of mental health services, like to be called a consumer or a client of a mental health service. And that's how they identify. Others may identify as patients and want to be called a patient. Others may reject all of those concepts, and may want to be referred to in terms of having lived experience of a mental health issue. Other people would find that not the way that they like to identify themselves. So you'll hear me throughout the lecture series, I suppose, particularly at the outset. You might have heard me using quite a range of terms, always typically with a person first language style, where I'm saying a person with, which is really acknowledging the person, and then the mental health experience is sort of secondary, so valuing the person. So I'd say a person with, experience of depression, rather than saying a depressed person, because that tends to reduce the person to the disorder more. But then everybody's got different preferences, so I'm certainly mindful that people have got different ways they like to think about things, and I try to, do what I can to approximate making the course as perfectly accessible for everybody as I can. Recently, when I testified at the Royal Commission into the mental health system in Victoria, I came off the stand after giving my testimony, and some colleagues were there and they congratulated me, but they also said, "Don't look at Twitter, don't look at Twitter." And while I'd been making the testimony, which was live streamed on the net, there'd been some people, some were trolls and others were, very, there is certainly people who would identify as belonging to an anti-psychiatry and an anti-psychology movement and community, and would be very critical of anything psychiatry or psychology related. There was some pretty nasty sorts of comments out there in the Twitter sphere. And everybody who testified on that day had experienced the same thing. Mental health and mental illness, it's a really sensitive subject. There's not many more sensitive subjects than this, right? It's a really sensitive issue, and so there's no perfect way to talk about it for everyone. Okay, I'm scrolling up. Thanks for chiming in and answering Spooky Shadow's question. Yeah, that's a good point. So I think in the morning lecture, I didn't get to finish up that particular lecture, did I? But then the evening lecture, I caught up. So if you need to catch up on that, the end of that lecture where we talked about the differences between psychiatry and psychology, take a look at the evening one. I have no idea who this Sally person is that can't dance, but I hope she learns to dance at some point, Levi. No one needs a reason to bring up the Spice Girls. Oh, that's kind of true, isn't it? Yeah. I know. I found it interesting, Levi. That's good. Who sings it? Who is it by? Survivors make the best mentors. Yeah, that's a really good point, Sally. I think you're onto a very good point there. There's a lot of talk in the last year or so around valuing survivors and people who've lived experience of suicide attempt as well. And that's a really burgeoning area, I suppose, of the lived experience sector that is emerging. One planet. I'm Groot. Yeah, there is that, isn't there? You know, I didn't know what Guardians of the Galaxy was for about 6 months after the first movie came out. And I know it was a comic or whatever before that, but I was completely oblivious to this phenomenon of Groot, the character from Guardians of the Galaxy, and had no idea why people were coming up to me around university and saying, "I am Groot," and running away. Okay, there you go. All right, I've got some music research to do now. Good. Do I get sick of Groot jokes? No, I don't get sick of Groot jokes. Everybody gives me, you saw another Groot over there. Somebody gave me this little Groot bobblehead recently. So, no, I don't get sick of Groot jokes. He can come over here too and hang out for a while. Game of Thrones has been fun for you. I'm glad Game of Thrones was fun for you. That ending, though, what was that ending? Come on, let's put a little bit more effort into the ending. Let's tie it all together. That was my opinion anyway. Yeah. Spoiler alert. Oh, you haven't seen it yet. Well, there you go. I didn't give you any spoilers, but yeah, I was hoping for more. I was hoping for more substance in the ending. What are you guys watching at the moment? What's the show of choice? Oh, you know what is just about to start? If you have Netflix, let me see if I can find a link here. What's it called? Okay. How can I share this without playing it? Probably not.
Have you got somebody?
Hang on a minute. All right. So if you are interested in forensic clinical psychology at all, there you go. Flip flies onto it. Mind Hunter season 2 starts very soon. Here is the trailer in the chat for you. So if you're interested in forensic clinical psychology, the concept of somebody's trying to get into my office. The concept of serial killers is what Mind Hunter is all about, and the start of the FBI's behavioral science unit. I think you'll find Mind Hunters to be a very interesting program. It's pretty graphic, so be warned, but very, very interesting. Oh, yeah, that was an interesting one, wasn't it? I sort of felt like it was a bit of a Dexter ripoff in many ways, but yeah, I did find that very interesting as well. If you go on to do clinical psychology, it does actually give you the flexibility to go and work forensically in the future as well. A good ex-student of ours here did exactly that, has gone on and had quite a successful forensic psychology career. Was a brilliant show, especially after the first few seasons. Criminal Minds. Have I seen Criminal Minds? I don't think so. Oh, Dirty John. Oh, my Lord. Yes. Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, good way to put it. That would, yeah. So, remember that, Shaz, when we get into my lectures where we talk about specific diagnoses, and I'm going to describe somebody, or I'm going to describe a particular profile at some point, and you will think, oh, that is Dirty John. Have I seen Chicago? No, I have not. Chicago Med, NPD. Sort of, yeah, a little bit of that, but I'd be going for something else as well. Dark. Oh, I haven't seen that. Charlie, we want Charlie. Yeah, I know. Charlie, complete me. But he's at home. Poor Charlie's at home. What did I see? Apocalyptic style series. I'll tell you what I like at the moment. The Handmaid's Tale. Oh my God, I love that show. Everything about it, the writing, the narrative, the dialogue, the cinematography, just everything is so on point with that show. And Endgame, I did see Endgame. I did indeed. Yeah, pretty much, Shaz. Although I'll be putting some different terminology. Stranger Things, love me some 11. Yes, definitely. Train Spotting, that was one of my favorite movies as a youngster. Yeah, I would have been in my late teens, I suppose, when that came out. That's a really interesting, pretty real and gritty story, isn't it? Train Spotting, but a really interesting piece of work. Yeah, Handmaid's Tale. Under his eye. Oh yeah, what's the praise be, Roy. Praise be. Blessed be the Fruit Loops. Oh yes, Hannibal. Hannibal. Yeah, that is a great show. Yeah, I do love everything Hannibal and Silence of the Lambs. I must say that entire universe I'm quite a fan of. The problem is with some of these things, of course, so things like, I see, Evan, Split. Yeah, so Split's a really interesting one. The reason I didn't like Split is because it provides a very misleading, and again, one of those things we were talking about around stigma, misleading, sensationalist, completely inaccurate picture of what dissociative identity disorder is like. And in doing so has just effectively educated millions of people around the world with a false impression of what dissociative identity disorder is like. Will this revisit this idea of dangerousness and fear, right? Has portrayed people with DID as dangerous, as something to be feared, something that's unpredictable, that's dehumanized. The altar in that, of course, was literally called the Beast. That's exactly the mechanism that we're talking about that can perpetuate stigma about certain things. Big Little Lies. Oh, Meryl Streep. Didn't she do a good job? She sure did. She was so irritating. My goodness. And she just did a fantastic job of doing that character. You're right. Anhedonia. So we'll be talking about anhedonia in due course. So anhedonia refers to a difficulty or perhaps even an inability to experience pleasure and derive pleasure from things that you would normally in the past or most people would find pleasurable. And we'll be talking about that in lectures coming up. Dissociative identity disorder can definitely include some aspects of depersonalization. Levi, we'll talk about that in due course. We'll talk about a range of dissociative phenomena. And you sort of touch on a hierarchy there, aren't you? You're getting at a higher than something idea. And when we think about dissociation, we can think about it at a very low level in terms of a dissociation from or a fracturing of awareness of maybe physiological processes or integration in terms of psychological processes and physiological processes, but at a very higher order, I suppose we could think about a fracturing of identity. In the coming week, I'm going to disambiguate. I'm going to start using some more precise terminology, and we're going to start to disambiguate things like signs, symptoms, disorders, and so forth. Hi, Jerry. Yeah, I completely agree. OCD is used broadly in a very inaccurate way. People will say, oh, I'm so OCD because I like to have my desk, organized. That's not what obsessive compulsive disorder is, nor is it what any sort of OCD related phenomena is. That I will explain this all next week. It really, I think, devalues exactly what the OCD experience is. And it's not a pleasant one, and it's not about it's not about being very well organized, shall we say, so to speak. Yeah, we'll flesh this out more in lectures next week. So where are we at? We're at 11:50. Okay, wow, time has flown. Do I think labels overly simplify things and that we overdiagnose? That's a really complicated question. Firstly, do I think labels overly simplify things? Yes. It all depends on the audience and who's using them. Labels can be very misleading, and I'll talk about this actually in our next lecture, how a label effectively embodies a treatment decision, and we know it doesn't provide a lot of information and therefore is simplifying. However, you would find that psychologists and psychiatrists and people with education and training would tend to think about any given experience in terms of its constituent features rather than be pigeonholed into a label, hopefully. Certainly context is always key. A diagnosis, in my opinion, should always be a working hypothesis about what's going on with someone to help guide decision making and treatment planning, but always open to change and be malleable, because things change over time, experiences change over time. Your relationship with your therapist and vice versa changes over time, and you might disclose other things down the track that are very important and maybe change the picture of what's going on. Very complicated. So yeah, I suppose, Alyssa, the simple answer would be yes to your first one. And as for the second one, it depends who we say by we and what type of experience we're talking about. I think some things might be, if anything, maybe overdiagnosed, some things are underdiagnosed. Again, the degree of expertise and training that is held by somebody is key in making sure that the diagnosis is valid and reliable and so forth. Yeah, we'll be talking about schizophrenia a lot more, and it plays out very differently for different people. So we know that for a proportion of people living with schizophrenia, there will be a treatment-resistant, ongoing course of illness. For other people, there might be a relapsing and remitting course of illness, so waxing and waning over time, becoming well, becoming not so well, becoming well, becoming not so well over time. And then for a period of, for a proportion of people that might at first meet criteria for schizophrenia and live with the condition for a period of time, there's evidence to suggest that they recover and no longer engage with treatment of any type and go on to live their lives. So it's, and I'll pick that idea up in lectures. Okay, so it's 11:55. I'm going to have to sign off in a couple of minutes to go to my next commitment. So time to ask me any last questions, and we need to work out who's getting this abnormal psychology textbook. Yeah, Jackson, really good point. Diet. So yeah, diet's a thing. The the brain-gut relationship, the microbiome. This is an emerging area of research, and it's becoming very clear that there is a strong relationship between diet and psychological functioning. So, what would you be doing between now and next week? I suppose would be something that we might finish up on. I would suggest, if you haven't seen the lectures, going over the lectures and looking at the assignment document, becoming familiar with the assignment, maybe starting to just read a couple of pages from that chapter that I've recommended from the assignment, and that would be a good way to spend your time through to next week. Will the Friday chat be the standard live chat day going forward? Not necessarily. I have got a really busy and dynamic schedule, and my weeks are never precisely the same. Haven't quite worked out when next week's is. I could aim for Friday. We will see. I will work it out over the weekend and I'll let you know. Sally, you could always have a look at the Mind, Brain and Behavior 1 Research Methods online micro lectures. If you wanted to catch up, that'll be a good way to start. Spooky, you will, yeah, we'll shake it up. I think we'll probably, I can guarantee it's going to be variable across the semester. So there'll be times in which these might clash with a prac class you have, but you'll always be able to join in after the fact. All right. Can you have SPSS? Yep. So Black Hawk, you need to get that My Uni Apps thing, and that works on iOS. All right. Who is getting this clinical psychology textbook? Oh, who won the other textbook? I can't remember now. Who won the big textbook? Spooky did. Yes. All right. Good, Spooky. Good, Spooky. Well, Ash G, seeing you ask so nicely, this is yours. So, okay, good. Ash G, this is yours, and you've said pretty please. And that was pretty easy, wasn't it? Oh, God, you all missed out on that. You're very welcome. So if you are on campus, I'm in my office for the next 45 minutes doing some work. You could drop by, but if not, come and get it from me next week. Same for you, Spooky Shadow. Drop me an email, maybe both of you, and I will have for you your respective books. Oh, there we go, for next week. Or whenever you can make it to come and see me. So there you go, and we'll keep giving out those over time. Okay, so this was pretty good. So this is an organic thing, right? We're just going to see how these live streams go and keep them rolling on. So obviously we talked generally about some things related to the content. We actually did touch on content. We talked a little about assignments, but then we just hung out and just talked about Netflix and stuff too. So I think it's a really good way for us all to engage with each other and have a sense of community around the subject. So thanks so much for joining in and help me make this stream. It wouldn't work without you guys. I really do appreciate it. Great. Glad you like it. Thanks, Marley. Thanks, Sally. Oh, thanks, Levi. Thanks, everyone. All right. So I'm going to do some work now. I hope you all have a great day. And over the weekend, if you've got any questions, just throw them up on Canvas in the discussion board. And you'll see that I've done something new with the general discussion. And it's all up there on Canvas. Have a look when you go. And I'll pop into the discussion board over the weekend and say hi. Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Snowy. Thanks, Spooky, Flipfly, Yang, everyone, Black Orc. Have a good one. And I will see you guys very soon. Okay, bye.